there was a hiccup with the staff for Obama informing him that we were in the air ready to jump when we got there. And so we got pushed 24 hours because he was asleep in Martha's Vineyard, from what I understand. I don't know the details of that. I know there's a bunch of shit that I probably have no fucking clue how it works, you know? And we come down, we push to the next night, and then we go. So I'm up there. I got a tandem medic on me, and I'm the point man for the op, you know? And I've got 3 other guys, too. Usually a team of 4. And up in the point anyways. So everything goes well. We jump. Great landing. We get on this target. It's for, this is in the news too, 2 professors that were kidnapped from the University of Kabul days before. One was Australian, one was American. Kevin King and Timothy Weeks. And found out that they're here, right? Probably being moved around different compounds on their way to cross the border in Pakistan. And, you know, the network of dudes that do, you know, the most deviant shit with the Taliban, it's those guys, right? Suicide bombers, you know, just all the worst shit you can think of that happened, you know, chopping off heads and whatever other kind of shit. I think that honestly actually was more in Iraq, but I don't know. So it's those guys, right? And so we're expecting a hard fight, maybe. And we all know, if you have any experience with these guys in Afghanistan, with all the suicide bombs, the house-borne IEDs, all the shit we like go really deliberate with when we go to these compounds. We're looking for, I mean, it's slow CQB. We're looking at every threshold for wires, for different, you know, there's even started using, you know, motion sensors and, you know, light sensor, like photosensitive bulbs, you know, and pillows and shit like that to just blow, right? And there's so many ops where that happens, right? So it's high tension, and we're expecting this shit, and we get down, and they're at a compound, right? Got a long walk in, everything goes well, and then we get to, you know, we see some movement around, some guys that seem to have RPGs, motorcycles moving around, and then what I believe was going on based off of what happened was that was just normal shit going on, because we were able to get all the way up to the target, sneaking up and get up on top and get ready without anybody knowing anything, right? But there were a couple of noises, you know, that we made. The way that I go back to thinking about what actually happened on this op have a lot to do with, you know, Kevin King never spoke much about it after. Maybe he's super traumatized by it. Maybe he's living his life, whatever. But Timothy Weeks did speak up on it a bunch in a bunch of different interviews and news outlets. And, you know, I was in my contracting work after this op, and eventually they were cut a deal to be turned over and traded, and with the release of Anas Haqqani, which is, you know, the leader, and a couple of other guys. And once that happened, pretty quickly it went around, even in the news, like a little write-up that he had of like what he thought happened on those different ops, because there was a couple of failed attempts. And I pieced it together over time, what I thought really happened, right? And so different ROEs for a hostage rescue, totally different. And every operator really understands, like, pretty in depth, like what those are. You have to, right? You really talk about it. Because the mission is the hostages. And on a hostage rescue, it's so hard to talk about, especially with people that don't understand war and those things, because one of only a couple of things is going to happen. They're going to kill the hostages if they know that you're there, which has happened. And that's a really hard thing for operators to deal with after. And Or you're going to rescue the hostages and kill all the bad guys. Great. You know? Or the good guys might accidentally kill the hostage while they're doing the operation. That's happened before too. That's hard. So as an operator, you go through your decision-making matrix to go, you're like, hey, my decision-making has to be very precise here, right? And this is where, even more so than any other time, or like there's no room for the soul, I think, in those. And that's a sacrifice that warriors have to make, in my opinion, to do what they do sometimes. And that's where the detachment from that is so hard afterwards to come back to, because you've just moments of detachment from that for so long over time, you know. And in history, some have been able to figure that, to stay attached and connected to that soul while they're doing it. But that just wasn't the case for where I was at, right? And what guys around me were at, and why it's so hard right now. Guys coming out. So we get up. I'm the first guy to touch the target. I climb up, sneak up to the roof, my spot, and my job is to protect the assaulters, right? And see what they can't see. So we have another team coming around on the other side, a little delayed because they went a different way. We weren't sure if we had been, compromised at all yet. My opinion is we still weren't. And so they climb up, they get set, they get ready, and in the meantime, I'm looking over down here, and there's 5 people sleeping in the courtyard. But we knew that. And on the way, trying to figure out who they are, what they are, making sure none of them are the hostages, right? And that there's a lot that goes into that identification, hair color, skin color, what do they look like? Is there any chance that they used to dress them up like in burqas, so that we'd think that they were women, right? So there wasn't any of that. They're all males. And through a process of that, getting to 100% clarity that like none of them are the hostages. But at the same time, going, hey, the ROE, the intel is saying that who these guys are and what networks they're part of. When they know we're here, they might blow up the whole fucking thing in themselves. They're willing to do that, right? And all of us. And we've experienced that before. Or they're gonna fucking spray something from under, from their little sleeping nest. And in my job, yeah, we're on a mission. The hostages are the most important. But if I hesitate in a decision, dude, I've gone through this so much, and I'm gonna try my best here, because I went through a whole process for years of making sure I'm not justifying, but justifying, and like going back and forth with my ego, just trying to understand this thing. But also for so many years, I was just coping with it with addictions and drinking my face off and just being lost with that new trauma, right? And figuring out if the decision I made was the right one, because the decision I made was we're going to kill these 5 males, right? And eliminate any risk to those assaulters, because if one gets hit because I hesitated on that decision, then I know their wives. I know a bunch of them. I know, they're all around our community, and fuck, that's my job, right? So then I started to eventually separate this into a duty decision and a soul decision, right? So when the breach goes off, I'm eliminating those 5. So I did, right? Thinking back now, there were some things that happened outside there were some loud noises, some things, some mistakes that I think may have spooked those guys into stomping those hostages down into a tunnel system down below, because a couple of years later when they got turned over, that reading that the thing that he wrote was like, hey, the first time I woke up in the middle of the night and to getting kicked down a fucking hidden tunnel and was like knocked out and came back to, and then as soon as I came back to, there was a loud explosion, which is the breach, for one, I think. And so it wasn't like hours or days. It could have been seconds that we missed those guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. So the breach goes off. The assaulters come in. They get into a fight with a couple of guys, eliminate them, and we're waiting to hear that got them. You know, in that room, the beds are still warm. There's still food from whenever before. You know, exercise bike, whatever. And hey, they're not here. And that's when essentially like, okay, we're going to clear this whole village now, which we did. And we've got other compounds we're looking at to, you know, to go look at, to go do. And as I'm doing my job, hopping from roof to roof, covering my guys, I'm going like this rush of just sort of stress comes over me because now it's soul time, right? Because what I didn't know, what I think I didn't know, I still go through this. To go, did I know? Did I not know? In that moment, that 2 out of the 5 males were kids. So, in the moment, it doesn't affect me too much. It's my job. You know, we wrap up that target, we get back, it's a failed hostage rescue. The team discusses like we always do. We go, hey, anybody have any issues with everything that went down tonight? Raise your hand. No. And even the guy who I told you, the platoon chief, was like, man, I brought it up because I didn't, you know, like, hey, I don't know. I think I know I did the right thing duty-wise, but something in here is fucking me up right now, right? And I'm good. He's like, you good? I'm like, I'm good, but I don't know what to say. What I feel is like, hey, you did the right thing. With that, you know, when you breach in Afghanistan, it's a blind assault. There's fucking dust. Like those guys' clearance was like you can't even see your hand in front of you. So imagine that, you know, hey, feeling your way into bad guys, you know, and making sure they're not the hostage. So that was that. The last I ever talked about it with anybody. The craziest thing was those guys got extended for a month to do more operations around this. Rangers get involved, other guys get involved in like, all right, guys, I got to go start my job in a fucking week and get back in time for it. So I fly back, and no shit, like 2 days later, I'm up in D.C. in this office at DITRA with a fucking suit and a tie, thinking about these kids and just trying to figure the shit out, but not understanding how. And I'm in this fucking office. I'm supposed to be getting read-ons and badges and shit, and there's this fucking, you know, guy who's the boss or whatever, the program manager, and he's like fucking eating Twinkies and shit all over his desk, and I'm like, hey, sir, what am I supposed to be, what do I need to do here? And he's like, fucking, what are you talking about? Get your ass over to the fucking brief you're supposed to be in. And I'm like, okay, you know, fucking dick, you know, and then I go do my best to figure out what the fuck I'm supposed to be doing in that job the first couple of weeks, you know, just feeling lost, like, what the fuck am I doing, you know? And, you know, over time, I got into the swing of it, and it was actually a really good experience doing that work. It's just, you know, as I processed through this and went through this whole phase of just these years of just fucking figuring myself out, just getting the bullshit, shoveling the bullshit out as much as I could while still adding more, not being able to figure out why I couldn't get it off. And, you know, one day I had the I Begin experience that cleared, that helped me understand a little bit better. and some other things that I did as well. And then like, fuck, finally I figured out how to start leveling it out to a point where I had enough clarity in my own self to go back to that moment and now look at it instead of fucking hiding from it, which I was doing for years. And every time I wanted to think about it, I would just go fucking get drunk, you know? And I got to this point just a few years ago. I'm 8 years out now, and maybe 4 years ago was rock bottom, where this thing plus the childhood and all the shit I was doing outside of what I really wanted to be, right? Which was just good. I fucking, you know, I had this friend in my neighborhood take his own life just in the little lake across from my front porch. And I used to go to that spot just because it made me feel good. I just would like take a paddleboard over there and I would just kind of lay there where he took his life and go, fuck, I like feel something here. And then every time I leave this spot, I don't feel anything. And because of that, you know, eventually I started to, it just took about a year of this seed being planted and growing in my head to where like, man, I can just fucking, I'm a burden on everybody. I'm yelling at my kids. I'm a horrible husband. I'm addicted to everything. I can't figure this shit out with these kids. So, you know, one day I found myself just playing slack side squeeze. You know the drill when you're fucking dry firing, but with one in the tube. And then that was the moment. I'm like, what the? I didn't even really realize I was doing it. I was just thinking. And then I now think back to go, thank God I wasn't drinking a bunch there. Because I think that in those moments, in that critical moment, which is the veteran suicide, like critical moment that I think about a lot, is a lot simpler than what I think we all think it is, because there's very specific thoughts going on in that moment, right? This guy, you know, this couple of guys or my team thinks I'm a shitbag or something. Like I had another friend take his own life, and he was at that outstation with me, and he got sent home because he became a really bad alcoholic. Then he was a great operator before, and then he turned into this, and he started getting bounced around teams, but you know, they got it to where he could like survive through it, and he got to retire, and then right after he retired, he took his own life. And for him, it was a little different. It was like, dude, that whole bullshit of like, if a guy's not performing for whatever the reason is in that moment, when we start to jump on it and be like, that's a fucking dude's a shitbag, and you just betray him after everything, all the good he was in those hard moments, like that's the shit guys are thinking about, right? So there's a much better way to do that shit. And I even participated in some of it with a different guy we got rid of. It's like, we're hard motherfuckers, but we don't have to play that game when it gets to that. We can get rid of a dude for not performing or put him somewhere where he can get a little bit better, right? And take a break or whatever it is without going, he's going to and fucking jump on that and be like, shit, you know? Because once that label happens, that's a betrayal. And fast forward to later, that critical moment, those little memories like those are what they're thinking about, what we're thinking about in what I think. So that was the rock bottom moment. The only thing that made me fucking stop in that fucking moment and paddleboard back to my house was it was at nighttime. I knew my family was eating dinner, and I started thinking about my son, and the whole reason why I got out was for them. And that brought me back a little bit to go like, fuck, even if I'm a shit father, like they still believe there's something in me, that thing that some people can feel or see, like my wife did. And she was still doing it in that moment, even though it wasn't me. She knew. And they fucking know. There's something more, right? And there's a chance to get back to that before they give up. I went back. And a couple days later, the wife of my friend that took his life there just randomly called me. And she was like, how you doing? You know? And I was like, fuck, not good. And she goes, oh shit, let me come over and talk to you. And I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. You know, because I knew what she had gone through with her husband's taking his life, and how that was a whole process. And she figured something out, because she was something better after that, after some years. And so she's the one who introduced me into the medicine. So I went, I was like, dude, I'll do anything. I don't care what it is. I'll go. And I was scared, but I was like willing to try anything. And so I went. That we can go through that is a whole nother discussion, but it just completely opened up my heart to seeing through all this bullshit that was on top, to go, fuck, you can just make a choice. So I made a choice, and pretty quickly I was able to get rid of all that bullshit, just shoveling it out to where it was like pretty much empty. And now I was just in full clarity to now go back to that night and go, fuck, why did that happen? How did that happen? So then I was able to go pick it apart and go, hey, I did what I think is the right thing in duty, right? Because I know how the universe works. If I didn't do that, we'd have all gotten blown up, or somebody would have gotten shot, and now I'd be dealing with that, right? We're not here. But also saying maybe that wouldn't have happened, because if that's a little bit of a justification for it, then fine. But you know how the universe works, you know? And so now going to separate duty completely from it, to go, for my soul, it was not the right answer. So I know that, right? And so now what I do is I've spent so much time now, instead of forgetting about those kids, thinking about them and trying to place myself in their childhood reality, where it doesn't matter what your environment is. If you're the children of a terrorist in your role as a servant to the father, or maybe he wasn't in that, I don't fucking know. But your job is to play, you know, and learn and absorb everything. So it forces me to attach it to what's happening with children now, and all the fucking bullshit of that, and like just trying to, I want to just shake some people up to go, look, your own stuff, right? That you're now, you know, you want people to think you're a good person, right? We all do, most of us. Some people have gotten to a point where they don't give a fuck, right? I want you to think I'm a good person so bad that I'll seek validation, you know, I'll do virtue signaling to show you how good I am, which now I'll use my children to show you. Look, especially the sexuality thing. It's so dangerously evil underneath it all, but I don't also want to shame and guilt those kind of parents that are doing that, right? Because they might not fucking even, when you're not clear, you're not even aware of your own behavior sometimes, right? So they don't even fucking know. They think it's the right thing to go, look, we let them, you know, I don't want to get into it too much, but like a boy, maybe he wants to be a girl, and we kind of push that a little bit, or vice versa, because we need to show that we're good, inclusive, diverse people. And the truth, what I know is, if I teach my kids kindness, that shit's all included in kindness, you know, inclusion. There are all these things, right? It's all underneath kindness, but you also teach them boundaries to protect themselves. And with children, they don't have boundaries. They don't know what that means. So they're going to absorb and sponge and take everything, because guess what? They just want your validation. So you might be like, hey, children, what do you think about this or that topic, in front of another adult? And like, they're going to say what you want them to, because their goal is your validation and nurturing from mom. And they're going to do whatever they need to do to get that, no matter how wrong or evil or anything it might be, right? So I just go through all of that over time. It's always connected to these kids to the point where I don't want to forget them. And I don't know how best to explain this, but I actually find myself thinking about it so much that it's like it's some form of love for them, you know, like, and what is their, dude, this is the hardest thing. What, you know, I believe that this is an experience, and just like if you're religious, I'm not even religious, but I see all these themes through every religious text that I've ever read. I try to read all of them. This is a body, right, that contains a soul, and death is just a transition into the next experience, whatever it might be. But that's the thing we're always fussing about and arguing about, like, you know, what is reincarnation? What is all, you know, and literally fighting wars with each other about our different beliefs about something we can't know here yet, you know? And so I find myself thinking about where they're at, you know? Same thing, same way I think about my grandfather. Before he passed away, some of the last words he said to me, I was able to sit by him next to the bed and talk. I was like, dude, Grandpa, I want to say things, but I don't know how. He's like, you can say whatever you want, you know? And I was like, well, here's what I want to say. You've been such a mentor to me. Everything I've done, you've given me the validation. You've been so proud of me. You know, he was so proud that I made it to SEAL Team 6. And I wanted to do this ice cream thing next so he could see. It didn't happen in time, but the thing I wanted to say, I was like, whatever you're feeling, you're like, I can imagine that you must be going through your whole life as an experience, and even to include things you might not have resolved with some of your sons, because there were some tensions, there's some things going on, you know, family things that always exist. And I was like, but what I think is that deep down inside you, to the core of your soul, what you really are is just little boy Jack, 7-year-old. That's what I visualize as the most authentic, the most real version of me that I ever was before anything happened to me, before any of those traumas, those conflicts, those things. And so going into myself was like a hostage rescue to grab that little boy and bring him back through all that fucking bullshit. So those kids now I think about, and I don't want to forget them.
Damn, Chris. You know, when we spoke the first time, you had mentioned dreams. Can you talk about those dreams?
Yeah. So for a long time, you know, like I said, like coping, we talk about PTSD, you know, in the teams and soft. I don't like to use that word because just like other words, in society, we attach too much stigma to those words. So it's like PTSD is like this thing no one wants to have. Because we know that if you're labeled with it or attached to it, no matter how anonymous they make the reporting system of it or whatever you do with the psychology or whatever, I'm not going to, because I want to be operational. That's my mission. So I like to call it coping instead. We all cope with it in different ways that we, in our culture, we make, just like in society, we make certain things socially acceptable. Anything but, you know, encourage each other to change our lifestyles, do something healthy, you know, because it doesn't fit in the culture. And that's the thing, why culture is such a powerful thing. So my coping with it was I was like trying my best to forget it. And then I was having these fucking nonstop nightmares. It was tough for my wife, because it'd be like I'd be stuck in the dream and making these strange noises because I knew I was in a dream and I was trying to get out of it. So, because I didn't want to look at these kids, and like the hardest part is like I know the image of what it looked like even one of them kind of like got up a little bit and like there's bullets through them and then kind of like laid back down. And this shit tormented me in the dreams, that every time he got up, it was like for some reason, my younger son's face. So then I developed this fucking belief that if anything traumatic happens to either one of them through their lives, it's because of me. And I was like, that's the message I was getting. And then I was like essentially shooting my own. And I think the reason it was him is because he's a little bit more of the adventurous. Like he just goes for it. But it's actually awesome now. Like he probably has fear, but he doesn't care about the fear, you know? And then my older son is more analytical, thinks things out a little bit more, and there's going to be good things and bad things for both of those traits. But I love both of them equally as much. But for some reason it was him because he's probably more likely to get into danger faster. Like I don't even want to say this because I don't want them to become SEALs. But he'll be the one if, I think. So after the Ibogaine, those went away. And so did the migraines.
Do you think those kids have ever tried to make contact with you?
Talking about the ones here? No, they're all like, you talking about on the operation?
Yeah.
No, I can't. Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry. No, haven't. That's a good point. I might need to pay more attention.
You think you're opened up enough for that?
Maybe, one thing I think about is, sorry, I misunderstood that for a second. I haven't gotten to a lot of the other war stuff much. And I don't know, sometimes I go, oh, it just didn't affect me much. I don't think so. I think that there's a psychological toll on everything that happens, every little thing. Now, if you're a guy that chooses to go, hey, I'm good, didn't bother me much, and you hold it and you don't talk about it and you go and it's like be with my grandfather. I wish he told me more, but he just doesn't talk about it. And you're like, okay, that's just how grandpa is. That's okay, But then there's us guys that I want to tell them. I want them to feel, something. Like they want to. I think they, my kids, my boys, I think they want to. So I decide now to go to it instead of the effects that shit's having on me when I try to forget it. But, as far as I meditate a lot. I've gone through some really intense meditation training, and I've got some more to do. Some teachers. Get a lot of visions out of those when you get far enough and deep enough. And I might not have been paying attention to what you just asked, so maybe the next time I do that, or even some, plant medicine ceremony or something, that maybe I'll lay that down as an intention to go, hey, if there's anything for me to receive from them, I'm open.
Did you know Gabe Accardi?
No, I don't think so.
He was a Team 10.
No, I didn't know him.
But I've told this before, but I'm going to tell you because I know that motherfucker contacts me all the time. And I'll tell you one example. That's his flag up there. But
The Red Wing.
Yep.
Flag.
He well, that was Josh Harris's flag, but Gabe was Josh's best friend. And Gabe cared about three things. He became a really bad heroin addict. And when he knew things were getting super dicey, he would give me that flag, those rounds, and I told you where those came from, and his grandpa's firefighter helmet, because that's just the only three things he fucking cared about. And he passed away several years ago, but I've had a lot of encounters with him. And I'll tell you, the last one that I had was, I've never told anybody this, or I have not said this on the show, but those rounds are from the Red Wings birds that went down. And
Well, I'm honored for you to tell me.
a ranger that was on the recovery op at the crash site gave those rounds to him and said that those were the only things that didn't burn up in the crash site.
Oh.
So he snapped off a round for every guy that died on that op and brought him home, and he just had him in a little fucking shave kit. And he would give them to me if he thought he was going to check out. I'll probably give them to a museum or something when I feel the time's right. But before he died, he would come over to my house all the time and tell me that he was going to start a Wounded Warriors hockey team sponsored by the NHL, completely junked out. And you've seen what that looks like, and a lot of people listening have seen what that looks like. It's not a fucking pretty sight. And I dedicated several years of my life to trying to make him better, and had some successes, but ultimately it didn't work out, obviously. But he would tell me, the Florida Panthers NHL team, they're gonna sponsor me. And I'd be like, okay, Gabe, I hope you're right, man. And when they found him, when he died, the Florida Panthers NHL team decided they were going to sponsor him. And so they went to his house to tell him that they were going to fund his team and be the sponsor. And he'd overdosed and was on the floor. Fast forward, they still stood the team up. They still funded the team. His name's on all the jerseys. And I got one of the first jerseys ever made. And they won the fucking national championships the very first year. And then I told you I went to Vienna and I did that Masood interview.
Yeah.
And we were the first ones to report that, and I got super fucking paranoid for protection. And I got a little too far in front of my skis and started hiring personal protection for my family, and fucking Taliban's called me out on X several times because we're fucking with their funding. And we came home from that Vienna trip, and I had that jersey framed. It's the first thing you see when you walk in the door, right next to the American flag. Huge, probably weighs 30 pounds. It's been hanging there ever since I got this studio, which has been about 3 years now. And when we got back, and that frame was, it had fallen off the wall and it was on the ground. It should have broke because of how heavy it is. Not a crack in the glass, not the frame still, nothing. Perfect condition. And we walk in, this is the day after we got back from Vienna, and I'm like, nobody here could have taken it because the whole team went to Vienna with me, except my assistant, and she wouldn't have done it. But I asked her, I said, hey, what's this? And she's like, I like that when I came in. Nobody else was here, like I said, and so like all day that was in my mind as I'm here working. And then the team left, and then everybody in the buildings left. And I was the last car in the parking lot, and I'm pacing around, and I just thought, because like I said, Gabe had made contact several times before, and I'm like pacing around, and I'm like, fuck, man, like, what are you trying to tell me, man? And do I need to like fucking move? Do I need to hire more protection? Like, what do I need to do? What are you telling me? And I go home and I tell my wife, Katie, I'm like, man, the weirdest fucking thing, like that frame's been up there. It's been on the wall for 3 years. I've never taken it off. Like, and then I come home from Vienna. I'm super paranoid and the frame's down. And I feel like Gabe's trying to tell me something. And Katie goes, the hockey jersey? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, Shawn, the Florida Panthers just won the fucking Stanley Cup. And I was like, what? She's like, the Florida Panthers just won the Stanley Cup. And I was like, holy shit. And then I looked at my watch, and the date was June 28th.
Yeah, the day.
June 28th is the anniversary of the Red Wings, which was a massive part of Gabe's life because those were his guys. That was his platoon.
That is.
And I
Yep.
just fucking lost it. But that's too many coincidences to be anything else. And then I thought, that fucker isn't trying to warn me anything. He's just going,
He's celebrating.
No, you fucking idiot. I'm not trying to warn you of anything. You're not that damn important. The fucking Panthers won the Stanley Cup, and
Yeah.
it's June 28th, and I just want your attention. And but there's signs, man. There's
Dude,
always signs
there's some
if you're paying
coincidences,
attention.
but there's also a lot of not coincidences. You've had enough experts on here that do things, you know, that, dude, I mean, we might, to believe there's not something, dude, over time, it's in every text, every Bible. We're more than this, what's in front of us. And signals and messages, you know, can get through from here to there to wherever we exist, you know, outside of or inside of what this is, you know. So really my opinion is that it's like a low, it's I don't want to offend anybody, but it's a low intelligence. It's of low intelligence for me, for somebody, I think, like an atheist or something, or somebody that just doesn't believe there's anything else but this. Because there's just too much evidence. Like, the evidence is you. Like,
It's got to be
whatever-
harder to. It's got to be harder to not believe than it is to believe.
I think so. Like,
But the only reason I'm kind of bringing this up right now, man, is for me, I think life is all about love and forgiveness. And those kids' souls are somewhere. And I can see it all over you that you want to know that you've been forgiven. And you love those kids. And I mean, you can see that you're so genuine about it. Maybe they will make contact. Maybe they're trying to.
yeah,
And maybe
I think they are me. You know, I think
maybe that's
we're
the
all connected.
sign that you
here.
need to know that they're good with it. But thanks for sharing
Well,
that.
thank you for that.
You want to take a break?
Yeah, it'd be good.